Inside the Magic, show number 384 for August 12th, 2012. It is Sunday, August 12th, 2012. This is show 384 of Inside the Magic, and as always, I am your host, Ricky Briganti. Got another great show packed with Disney and theme park news and a whole lot more fun. And before we get to all of that, I do invite you to visit InsideTheMagic.net. There you'll find all of our podcasts, videos, photos, news, articles, and plenty more. And if you ever have any news, tips, questions, comments, or anything else you want to say, you can do it by writing to me, emailing me at ricky@InsideTheMagic.net, or you can always call and leave a message, and that number to call is 407-494-4ITM. That's 4486. And now, let's get on with the show. And this week's episode of Inside the Magic is brought to you by Magical Travel. You can receive free shipboard credit when you book your Disney cruise vacation with Magical Travel. That shipboard credit is good towards merchandise or spa treatments or shore excursions and plenty more. You're going to want to call Magical Travel today at 866-207-8387 or visit them online at magicaltravel.com to receive a free price quote, and be sure to mention Inside the Magic when you inquire with them to receive your free Disney gift card for qualifying bookings when you book your Disney vacation with Magical Travel. And by listeners and viewers like you, thanks very much to all of our one-time donators, recurring donation subscribers, or anybody clicking through any of the affiliate links over on InsideTheMagic.net, Amazon, etc. It all goes back to support the show, and I thank you very, 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 very much for all of it. And now, let's get started with a trip around the world. So we have quite a bit of really exciting news to cover this week, starting right out here in Orlando at Walt Disney World at the Magic Kingdom, where finally, we have an official opening date for New Fantasyland, the biggest ever expansion of the Magic Kingdom we've been talking about for years now. Disney this week finally set that opening date as December 6th of this year, 2012. That's going to not include every single aspect of New Fantasyland because some of it is still a year or two away, but the majority of it is going to be opening in just a few months. That includes Under the Sea, Journey of the Little Mermaid, which is the Little Mermaid Dark Ride, includes the Be Our Guest restaurant, Enchanted Tales with Belle, which is the interactive high-tech meet and greet, Ariel's Grotto, Gaston's Tavern, and Bonjour Village Gifts. All of that will be officially opening December 6th. However, those of you showing up in time for Thanksgiving a few weeks before will actually have a chance to see it all as well, because Disney has also announced previews beginning November 19th. Now, that November 19th is a little bit confusing. A lot of people are asking, well, what does that mean? Is some of it going to be open? Is all of it going to be open? Is it only for select people? Well, it seems that on November 19th, everything I just listed is going to be open for everybody at the Magic Kingdom. It's not a specific crowd. It's a general preview phase for all guests just in time for the busy Thanksgiving week. Now, in addition to that, there's a previously announced annual pass holder preview. The date for that has not yet been released. There's a Vacation Club preview, cast member preview, and probably some unannounced soft openings as well. So it's highly, highly likely that any or all of what I just listed will be open even in advance of November 19th, but all of that has either not been announced or is not going to be announced, and it may just be periodic soft opening here and there. So it is possible that we'll be able to get into some or all of those areas before November 19th, but at the very least, Disney has definitely announced that November 19th and then moving forward is when all of that will be open. Of course, during that preview phase between the 19th, November 19th, and the official grand opening on December 6th, there's no guarantees that it will all be accessible. It is being called a preview phase at that point in late November, so anything could go down at any moment. Technical rehearsals, technical issues, all of that kind of thing. Maybe they want to tweak some things. So no 100% guarantees, but for the most part, November 19th is kind of the kind of opening date, but December 6th, the official opening. I'm sure they'll have a big grand hoopla to celebrate it. Now, many are wondering, of course, about the Be Our Guest restaurant reservations. Those will be opening sometime this month as well. The restaurant, of course, doesn't open for a few months, but you'll be able to make reservations for Be Our Guest a bit later. I've heard a date of August 28th. That's not confirmed. That's not announced. It'll be sometime later this month as to when you'll be able to call in and make reservations for Be Our Guest. So after December 6th, once all of that of New Fantasyland is open, that looking forward, next year, 2013, is when Princess Fairy Tale Hall will open. That's, of course, replacing Snow White's Scary Adventures. That's where the princesses are going to have their meet and greets. And then looking even past that, 2014 is when the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is going to open. So it's still a year and 2 years away from the rest of it, but the majority of Fantasyland Forest and the whole village area surrounding the Beauty and the Beast areas, etc., will be open this year. So pretty exciting stuff there. There's a video floating around online that was pulled from a cast member area, a cast member exclusive area online. The video was really intended only to be seen by cast members, but naturally it made its way online. It has a lot of spoilers that show a lot of things that Disney doesn't necessarily want everybody to see quite yet from within a variety of the attractions throughout New Fantasyland, including some very surprising and special audio animatronics figures, plural, for Enchanted Tales with Belle. That sounds like it's just going to be a meet and greet, but it looks like it's going to be a whole lot more than that, and plenty more. So if you're really interested, you can go seek that out. I'm not even going to tell you where to find it. Just go looking around and you might stumble across it. It is filled heavily with spoilers for this whole area, because it seems that Disney's been holding back, and there's a lot more to many of these experiences than they've even been letting on, which is pretty exciting. Seems like New Fantasyland is going to be really, really nice, and now just a few months away from opening officially. But that's not all. There is, of course, another aspect of the Magic Kingdom that has been opening in phases for a few months now, and that is Storybook Circus, and there's even more of Storybook Circus to come. Pete's Silly Sideshow is the one area that we didn't know a whole lot about, other than it was going to house some meet and greets. Well, this week Disney did release a lot of concept art surrounding what will be included in Pete's Silly Sideshow inside the big top tents over in that Storybook Circus area, which of course replaced the old Mickey's Toontown Fair. The artwork shows the entrance to Pete's Silly Sideshow, of course, looking like a big red circus tent with a big image of Pete, the classic Disney character from Mickey shorts from years and years ago, and much more. A welcoming guests in. Then it will split into actually two separate doors inside, which will lead you into two separate sides worth of meet and greets. And the characters that will be included in there are Minnie Mouse, Donald Duck, Daisy Duck, and Goofy. And that means, you're not going to see any of those rare characters that were rumored. No Oswald meet and greet, not even a Pete meet and greet. It seems like there's just going to be Minnie, Donald, Daisy, and Goofy, but they are going to be playing the roles in the circus. They're going to be, Minnie will be Minnie Magnifique, and that's her own, dressed up in a special outfit for the circus. You've got Donald, who will be the astounding Donaldo. Then, of course, Daisy will be Madame Daisy Fortuna, fortune teller. And Goofy, naturally, right near the Barnstormer, will be the Great Goofini. So you'll see him dressed in his Daredevil Goofini outfit. You'll be able to get a picture with him. Now, all of these meet and greets will be, of course, circus-themed and taking place right there in Storybook Circus. You're not going to find Circus Mickey Mouse, however. He's going to stay in Town Square Theater near the front of the park. As to whether we'll see any other characters that everybody was hoping for, some of those classic, Clarabelle Cow or anything like that. It's a little bit unclear at this point. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like those four characters are going to be the primary focus of this area. In addition, there's also going to be another circus tent at Storybook Circus called Big Top Souvenirs. That's going to be a merchandise location, of course, and Disney has said both of those locations will be opening in time for the new Fantasyland grand opening on December 6th. So they could open before that, could open tomorrow for all I know, but they'll open in time for December 6th as well, and that should finish off Storybook Circus also. But speaking of openings, Disney did have an official opening just a couple of days ago out here at Walt Disney World, and that's the third wing of Disney's Art of Animation Resort. This wing is themed to The Lion King. That makes 3 wings open. Of course, the first 2 were Finding Nemo and Cars, and now The Lion King wing sets guests inside the Pride Lands of Africa. There's no pool in this wing, unlike all 3 of the others. Actually, the Little Mermaid wing, of course, is not open quite yet, but there are plenty of characters. You'll find King Mufasa standing high atop Pride Rock. Nearby is an elephant graveyard play area where Scar is looking menacingly over it along with his hyena henchmen, and it's got a bunch of elephant bones and tusks and all of that kind of stuff where kids can run around and well, play, but minus the water. You know, like I said, there's no pool. In addition, there's sort of a Hakuna Matata moment coming out of one of the buildings where you see Pumbaa and Timon and young Simba walking across a log, looking pretty happy about being there, and plenty more all over the area. Of course, moving on into the rooms themselves, they're very much Lion King themed. These are family suites, just like the existing 2 wings, the Cars and Finding Nemo. 320 Lion King family suites. They're brightly colored sort of representations of the more musical and upbeat scenes from the film. On there's like an array of giraffes behind the couch, and plenty of jungle sort of themes or African decor. Zazu is featured on the headboard for the beds. And in the bathrooms, you'll find the shower curtain with Pumbaa and Timon. These family suites sleep up to 6 comfortably, and that only leaves the Little Mermaid wing of Disney's Art of Animation Resort to be open to finish up the whole hotel. That is scheduled for September 15th, so a little over a month away now. That is the only wing of the hotel that will have standard rooms rather than family suites. It'll be 864 standard rooms for the Little Mermaid, and it will sleep up to 4 in those rooms. I'm really looking forward to seeing that area for Ariel. The Little Mermaid is definitely one of my favorite Disney films of all time, so I will have to stay in one of those rooms and check it out, just because it's not only The Little Mermaid, but it's a standard room as well, and I'll be able to compare that to the family suites from the other 3 wings. But even if you're not staying there, you can freely walk around and explore the open wings for now, which I definitely encourage you to do that, and try the food as well in their Landscapes of Flavor food court. All very, very enjoyable. Now, some of you, if you're like me, may have been wondering in recent months and even years, what is Disney doing with that Cinderella Castle suite? It was, of course, made during the Year of a Million Dreams, and they'd given away nightly stays in there, and then there were some other promotions and contests where you could win a night's stay in there, and then it kind of became silent after that. Of course, you can't book a night in Cinderella Castle. There is no price for it. It's just simply impossible. Well, at least I thought it was impossible. This week, apparently Tom Cruise, the big Hollywood actor, was taking his daughter on a quick Disney vacation out here to Walt Disney World this week, and reports have said that the pair of them did spend a night inside Cinderella Castle. So apparently, if you're Tom Cruise, you get to stay in Cinderella Castle. If you're anything short of Tom Cruise, well, you're probably out of luck. So, well, it's better that it at least gets used for something than just sitting there vacant. But, it'd be nice if Disney would open it up in some other fashion for the average folk to get a chance to be in there. So we had talked about, I think on last week's show, the possibility of sight line balloons flying up over Camp Minnie Mickey at Disney's Animal Kingdom in preparation for Avatar, and the possibility of them sort of checking to see if you could see certain parts of what is planned for Avatar, the upcoming new land, the Pandora area of Animal Kingdom. Well, Inside the Magic listener Ed wrote in and said, I just returned from a Walt Disney World trip this week, and while I have no knowledge of Tom Staggs or Joe Rohde being there, I did see the sight and survey balloons over Camp Camp Mini Mickey. There were 3 different color balloons. The tallest was a single red one, flanked by a shorter red or orange ones. There were also 3 or 4 yellow-colored balloons lower than the rest. They were clearly visible from the parking lot, but with all the foliage around the park, they were not visible from the Oasis, Dinoland, or most of Asia. I made a point of looking for them throughout the day and did not see them from various parts of the park, and they were gone by early afternoon. So thanks very much for that note, Ed. It's good to get some confirmation of those sight balloons. It seems like Disney is sort of narrowing down what they are planning for this Pandora, this Avatar area of Animal Kingdom. If they're flying sight balloons, that means they have an idea of what kind of buildings or structures they're going to be creating for the area, and they really want to see exactly what Ed was able to see, was walking around the park and see how it may or may not interfere with the sight lines around and possibly break theming of the various areas. So it sounds like they certainly did well with this. If you couldn't see the balloons anywhere except in the immediate area, I'm sure that was exactly the point. So again, Ed, thanks for that email. So here's a report that is just a notch above rumor. It seems highly, highly likely that if you're a fan of Where's My Water, the very popular app for iOS devices, and of course you know Swampy the Gator, the main character from that, you may be seeing Swampy the Gator at Disney's water parks out here at Walt Disney World pretty soon. The folks over at Stitch Kingdom managed to find a mobile website on the Walt Disney World page that insinuated, or really just said specifically, that Swampy the Gator in some form would be appearing soon at Typhoon Lagoon and at Blizzard Beach. It didn't explicitly say that it's going to be a character meet and greet, but that's kind of the idea that it was giving. So if you are a fan of Swampy, Disney's newest animated character, who I believe is still going to get some kind of web series at some point. Anyway, he apparently is going to be appearing at the water parks at some point out here in Florida. And here's a bit of new technology, a bit of new merchandise that many have immediately upon seeing the pictures online deemed as rather creepy. Those who have seen it in person said maybe it's not so much creepy, maybe it's just the photos. At any rate, it's Disney Princess custom figurines, very much like the Carbon Freeze Me experience Disney offered during Star Wars weekends, which I talked about, where I went into the carbon freezing chamber and got my head scanned, and then several weeks later I received a 3D printed figure shipped to me that had my face on Han Solo's body frozen in carbonite. Very cool technology. Well, that's all part of D-Tech Me from Disney, and now they're extending it to Disney Princess figurines as well. There will be 3D printed 7-inch Disney Princess figurines. It's launching August 26th for a limited time only at Downtown Disney out here at Walt Disney World, and it's only going to be for guests ages 3 to 12, so only for children, not adults this time around. And it'll take about 10 minutes to do a 3D scan of the kid's head, and from there it'll be sent off to wherever they print these up, a 3D printer, and guests can choose one of 7 Disney princesses to put your head on: Ariel, Aurora, Belle, Cinderella, Rapunzel, Snow White, or Tiana. And Disney will match your hair color, your skin color, regardless of the princess, and then have your kid's face instead of the usual face. And I did have somebody on Twitter write to me the other day saying that their child was part of the test group a few weeks ago, or maybe even a couple of months ago, that Disney did for this, and that they were really happy with the way their figure turned out. They said the skin color was a little bit off, but the likeness was great, and it wasn't nearly as creepy as some of the images that Disney has released. You can head on over to InsideTheMagic.net if you want to see the pictures of what this looks like to have a kid's face instead of the traditional princess face. Naturally, since it's restricted to ages 3 to 12, and I am not a girl 3 to 12 years old, I won't be participating in this myself, though honestly, given the opportunity, I would do it just for fun. But that's not going to happen. So anyway, it's $100, by the way, to get this done. So August 26th, Downtown Disney is when you can do it. Speaking of Carbon Freeze Me, though, coming up in less than 2 weeks out here in Orlando at the Orange County Convention Center, Star Wars Celebration 6 returning to Orlando. It was 2 years ago. Celebration 5 was here. This is the massive Star Wars convention drawing tens of thousands of Star Wars fans, and Disney is indeed, as expected, bringing back the Carbon Freeze Me experience for Star Wars Celebration 6. It'll be there at the Convention Center at their booth number 341. It's going to be $100 plus plus tax and shipping for that 8-inch figurine that I was just talking about. In addition, Disney will have plenty of other exciting things going on at Star Wars Celebration. They will be debuting or featuring some special custom iPhone cases. That's for iPhone 4 and iPhone 4S. Those will be a part of the D-Tech on-demand system. They'll have Star Wars and Disney designs, and they will be printed right there on the spot. They're not just pre-printed merchandise. I'm not really sure what the value of printing it right there on the spot is if they're not customizable, but that's what it's going to be. And those are going to be $37 each. Also at booth 341. Disney will also have booth 331, and that's where they're going to sell some exclusive pieces of merchandise, some of which I will definitely be purchasing. There's going to be a Star Tours 25th anniversary die-cast Star Speeder collection for $20 that will feature both the Star Speeder 3000 from the old Star Tours and the Star Speeder 1000 from the new Star Tours side by side. And this is the first time there's going to be a small die-cast vehicle for the Star Speeder 1000. And then in addition, there's going to be an exclusive vinylmation of a Princess Leia hologram for $19, limited edition of 2,500. It's part of Star Wars Vinylmation Series number 2. A variant figure included there, and a bunch of other Vinylmation will be there as well. In addition, Disney's going to have plenty of Star Wars Celebration themed t-shirts with Disney characters on them, and the Star Tours the Star Tours name tags that were very, very popular, customizable with your own name written in Arabesh, will return to Celebration as they were at Star Wars Weekends, except this time around they'll say Star Wars Celebration 6 on them, and they're black in color with new destinations that you can add on there. So definitely a good collectible for you Star Wars fans out there. In addition, Disney will have 2 panel presentations at Celebration 6. The first will be Disney Parks and Star Wars. This is where the magic begins. That's going to take place on Thursday, August 23rd from 3 to 4 p.m. at the behind-the-scenes stage at which is W414 ABCD. And their description of that panel is, be among the first to get a sneak peek into what new exclusives will be coming from the Disney parks in 2012 and 2013. You will also take an inside look behind the magic at how Disney Parks creates exclusive Star Wars merchandise with insights from Brad Schonenberg and Cody Hampton of Disney's creative development team. Sounds a whole lot like the presentation they gave at Star Wars Celebration 5 a couple of years ago, which was very informative and entertaining. Looking forward to that one. And the other presentation will be the new Star Tours The Adventures Continue on Saturday, August 25th from 3 to 4 p.m. Same location, W414 ABCD. And that is described as, before you take your next trip on the Star Speeder 1000, you'll want to check out this panel that goes behind the scenes at Walt Disney Imagineering and Industrial Light and Magic. Bill George and Stephen F. Spiegel will reveal what it took to relaunch the hit attraction in 3D and what secrets the amazing ride through the galaxy may hold. So another fun presentation for anybody who is a fan of Star Tours, which is just about everybody out there. So I will most definitely be at Star Wars Celebration 6 as much as I possibly can for all 4 days. It's taking place again at the Orange County Convention Center, August 23rd through 26th. StarWarsCelebration.com is where you can find out more information. Moving on to the world of Halloween. Very, very exciting that we're moving into that time of year. And a quick update to Halloween Horror Nights, not out here in Orlando, but rather at Universal Studios Hollywood. In addition to having a Walking Dead-themed haunted house, apparently the Terror Tram at Universal Hollywood only is also going to be themed Walking Dead. So that should be pretty exciting for those of you who will be making it out for that. Out here in Central Florida, over in Tampa, many details have been revealed for Busch Gardens' annual Howl-O-Scream event. It will once again kind of take on the tagline of the dark side of the garden, so that's not actually sort of the theme of the event. It's a little unclear as to how that's actually going to work, but they've begun teasing about what the icon is going to be this year. They've released a silhouette of a gatekeeper / caretaker sort of figure. He's some kind of monster, but they haven't revealed the details of him quite yet. Apparently he's got some golden key that ties into the theme of this year's 13th year of Howl-O-Scream. Of course, 13 always a big number in the world of Halloween. And apparently this is going to be the first male icon for Howl-O-Scream in a number of years. Howl-O-Scream will be featuring 6 haunted houses this year, plus their Alone house, so really 7 total. 6 regular, and then Alone is separately booked. 4 of their haunted houses will be returning from past years, and there'll be 2 all-new experiences, one of which is called Blood Asylum. That's something new for 2012. Many Howl-O-Scream fans are excited about the return of an asylum-themed haunted house. The other new one this year is going to be Circus of Superstition 3D. 3D house, obviously. It's going to feature clowns and all that kind of crazy stuff. Death Row Vengeance and Reconstruction are being retired. You're not going to see those. Zombie Mortuary and Nevermore will be returning this year, and then those will just have some minor tweaks to it. And then Nightshade Toy Factory will get another sort of variation of that. This one will be Nightshade Toy Factory Mutation. It's going to have mutants and a radioactive spill and, of course, evil toys and all of that kind of thing. But the one I'm really most looking forward to is formerly known as Vampire Casino. Well, that is no longer going to have vampires. Now it is Ultimate Gamble Condemned, and it's going to be a shuttered casino. All the bright lights have been turned off. The casino is closed, but you're still going to walk through, and everybody's going to get flashlights in order to be able to light the way through. That should be pretty exciting. I am definitely looking forward to that. Scare zones will be returning this year. There will still be, as Busch Gardens puts it, total park immersion, but in addition, there will be scare zones, including one called Faded Memories, which will be set pieces and props and characters from Howl-O-Scream Past for the past 13 years, and the popular Fiends show with the always popular nurses will be returning once again, except this year it's moving indoors to the Desert Grill for the first time instead of at the outdoor Stanley area of the park. So a little bit of a change there. So good news from Howl-O-Scream. Now, moving back to Walt Disney World, it has been confirmed that Imagineer Kathy Mangum, who you've been hearing from many, many times over the last years all about Cars Land, has a new position. She's moving out here to Walt Disney World in a newly created job called Executive Producer of Walt Disney World. She was formerly Vice President of Walt Disney Imagineering, as I said, very much at the top of the Cars Land project. Now she's coming out here to Orlando to work on things. They're saying that she's not particularly associated with any one project specifically, but there, of course, is a new Fantasyland going on out here. Avatar is a few years away. She could have a part of that, and there are plenty of rumors that Cars Land will be making its way out here to Florida in some fashion. That, of course, has not been confirmed or even hinted at by Disney. Just continues to be rumors, especially with her making the move from California to out here. Of course, during the period she was sort of heading up Cars Land with a few others, Disney has been doing very well now that it is open. She put together an excellent, a really amazing area that is Cars Land that is getting rave reviews from everybody who has been visiting there, myself included. And in fact, Disneyland has set some attendance records during the period, as of course has California Adventure. California Adventure has been seeing 50% of Disneyland's total attendance in recent months since Cars Land opened, up from 25% previously, so a huge jump for California Adventure. Definitely doing some good things for that park out there. Of course, there's also Buena Vista Street and all the many other improvements to the park, and hopefully Mangum can bring her expertise out here to Walt Disney World to really improve some things around the parks here as well. And Disney continues to build on some of the technologies that they have implemented, and recently more magic for the Disneyland Resort. The Glow with the Show ears that they debuted in June, interacting with World of Color, will soon also interact with Fantasmic over at Disneyland. They'll be lighting up and fading in and out and changing colors and all that kind of good stuff in time with the various sites of Fantasmic. Sometime later this month is when that's going to debut. It still remains to be seen how successful this whole Glow with the Show ear notion is going to be. It works really, really well every time there's a special event, whether it's a media event or an annual pass holder gathering or even a Disney Parks blog meetup. When they hand out these ears to a mass quantity of people, it looks great. I think it'll look great during Fantasmic, but when only 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 people are wearing them in the crowd, or even 20 people, it doesn't look quite as well. And I'm sure Disney is still trying to figure out how to get that saturation in there so that many people are wearing them every night. Of course, if you want to purchase the glow with the show ears at the Disneyland Resort, they're about $25. Now, we previously, I think on last week's show, talked about the introduction of Wi-Fi internet access out here in Orlando at the parks, and I had mentioned that there was one stray Wi-Fi signal picked up in New Orleans Square at Disneyland, and that may or may not indicate the future of that. Well, Jordan wrote in and offered a wonderful reason for there being Wi-Fi in New Orleans Square. Jordan said, just wanted to say, for the past few trips, dating back about 2 years or so, I have found Wi-Fi sporadically in New Orleans Square. I figure it was simply there for the Dream Suite, as I always seem to find it around the entrance/load area of Pirates of the Caribbean. Jordan, that makes perfect sense. Of course, the Dream Suite is there above Pirates in the Caribbean at the old Disney Gallery location, and anybody staying in that suite, though like Cinderella Castle suite, it's unclear as to who gets to stay there and why nowadays, but yeah, that would make perfect sense that would be why there's Wi-Fi there at the moment. Of course, Disneyland told me that they have no information to share about park-wide Wi-Fi at this time. Coming up for Halloween time out at the Disneyland Resort, of course, there will be the usual array of exciting things, Space Mountain Ghost Galaxy, Haunted Mansion Holiday, and all of that. But in addition, the traveling exhibit, the Art of Frankenweenie exhibition, will be making its final stop of its tour at Disney California Adventure. That's going to open there September 14th, stay there till November 5th, in addition to being able to see the set pieces and the puppets and all of the artwork associated with this upcoming film. Disney will be offering an extended sneak peek at the stop-motion animated film from Tim Burton, which hits theaters on October 5th. Those of you who are fans of Disney's posters, attraction posters over the years, will definitely want to check out a new book from Disney Parks called Poster Art of the Disney Parks. It came out recently, both at Disneyland and Walt Disney World, will be available online very soon. And just a few days from now, on August 18th, a really excellent event is taking place at the Disney Gallery at Disneyland with the authors of the book, Vanessa Hunt and Danny Hankey, as well as some Imagineers that were associated. This is from 9 to 11 a.m. on August 18th. Tony Baxter's going to be there. He wrote the book's introduction. Artists Larry Nicolai and Will Everman will be there, and Disney legend and retired Imagineer Rolly Crump will be there as well, who, he worked on many attractions dating back decades, including the Haunted Mansion and many others, so definitely a treat, a rare treat, in fact, to see him in the parks in person. So if you're going to be at Disneyland August 18th, you do not want to miss that. And this week, Disneyland announced some changes to their popular Walk in Walt's Footsteps tour. They're sort of relaunching it beginning September 9th. They're calling it Walk in Walt's Disneyland Footsteps now, and adding to the tour, for the first time ever, guests will be able to step inside Walt Disney's private apartment above the firehouse in Town Square. Pretty exciting addition to the tour there. In addition, you'll be able to peek into the lobby of Club 33. There'll be a private lunch on Main Street, USA, as well as 2 classic attraction experiences, basically meaning you get to ride a couple of the rides, and you'll also get a collectible pin. The tour lasts 3 hours long, and theme park admission is required in order to take part in it. Leaves every day at 9:30 a.m. If you want to book it, call 714-781-TOUR or go to disneyland.com/tours for more information. And this week was SIGGRAPH, which is an annual sort of technology explosion, really gathering convention where many researchers from around the world all gather in the world of computer graphics or anything related to that to show off the latest technologies and research that they have put together. And Disney Research was there showing off some pretty incredible things this year. There's a human-plant interaction that they're dubbing Botanicus interacticus, and that basically means they are taking ordinary plants, just regular old plants in a pot or in the ground or wherever, attaching a capacitive sensor module, running a low current through the plant, doesn't harm the plant at all, and they've basically figured out a way to turn a plant into a touch panel, a touch screen, a touch whatever you want to call it. You can touch different parts of the plant up and down. It'll recognize where on the plant you're touching it, how you're touching it, and it can react accordingly. And the demo that they were showing off was sort of a, you touch the plant on one side, and on the other side you see a glowing version of the plant, glowing in this sort of purplish blue color. And of course, everybody's immediately thinking about Avatar and the glowing plants from that film and thinking, well, this has got to be what they're coming up with this for, that they're going to bring it into the parks, put it throughout the upcoming Pandora Avatar land, and people will be able to touch the plants around the area and they'll glow just like in the film. Would be pretty incredible if that was what they are planning on doing, but of course Disney is not saying specifically, other than noting that it is just research at this point. Beyond that, some really impressive audio animatronics research has been going on with creating even more lifelike faces for use with animatronic figures. They've basically found a way, as they're calling it, to clone faces, real people's faces for audio animatronics use, producing lifelike results. Essentially, they do a 3D face scan, not unlike what was used for Carbon Freeze Me or that new Disney Princess thing I was talking about earlier. And from there, in the computer, they create a three-dimensional version of your face with textures and everything. They sort of create what would be a mold for them to be able to pour silicone into. They're able to create that mold directly from the computer. They pour the silicone, they are able to texture it, and then they use motion capture on the face to translate that directly into the motor motion necessary to create an audio animatronics figure. There's a video online Disney has released from this, and it's extremely creepy, in a good way. I mean, it's really impressive, sort of, as they put it, automating the process of going from a real person into an audio animatronics figure. So definitely some impressive research going on from Disney. As always, looking forward to seeing any of this make its way to the parks. Certainly no time soon. Is always a very long amount of time between the initial research stages and actual practical use, but it's on the way. Sounds pretty cool. Now, going on this weekend out at Disneyland Hotel is the latest Destination D event from D23, and we sent Jeremiah Dawes out there to cover it. He's been on the Inside the Magic Twitter and Facebook all weekend. In fact, he is currently, literally right now as I'm recording this, there, and that's why we're not going to talk about this week, because it's Saturday and Sunday throughout the day today. So we'll be talking about Destination D next weekend here on the show. We'll bring on Jeremiah and have sort of a recap, and of course, sometime this week you can check the website as well for a recap as to what's going on at that event. It's been pretty exciting so far. But in the world of D23, beyond Destination D, the D23 Expo, of course, will take place next year in August, just under a year from now, and tickets are now on sale for the 2013 D23 Expo. They're on sale. The $1,500 tickets, the Sorcerer level tickets, are already sold out. They sold out within like 10 minutes of them going on sale a few days ago, so those you can't get, but there's still plenty of regular tickets that are available for that event next August. And this week, Disney released their Q3 fiscal report, and it's been a very, very successful quarter for Disney between the opening of Cars Land, Buena Vista Street, as well as, of course, the Avengers at the box office. Overall, Disney's profits Disney's earnings were up 4% to nearly $11.1 billion. Profits up by 24%. There's been widely successful at the parks, of course, as I said, Cars Land, etc., but even overseas in Paris, there was a 4% growth there. And the Walt Disney Studio, in the world of movies, profits rose more than 100% because of the Avengers, of course, being very, very successful. An interesting note that came out of it, Bob Iger said that despite the fact that the Avengers was so incredibly successful at the box office, its merchandise was a little bit behind maybe where it should be in the world of Marvel and the Avengers, because Cars is still way outperforming Marvel in merchandise, apparently. Cars is just a money-making machine when it comes to merchandise, so I guess that's no surprise there. That's why there is Cars Land, and we'll continue to see more and more cars as long as those products are flying off the shelves. In the world of television, any of you who have been watching Tron Uprising may be wondering what's going on. Is it coming back? It kind of just vanished for a while, and then Disney XD ran a marathon a couple of nights ago, and that's when they revealed that, yes, Tron Uprising most definitely will be coming back to TV with new episodes, but not until October, apparently. It was previously thought it was going to be September, but the promo that they ran on TV said October. So it's going to be a little while before, unfortunately, for any new Tron Uprising episodes, but at least the show hasn't been canceled. Now let's turn to the world of movies, where the newest Toy Story short has been officially announced. It will be playing next month ahead of Finding Nemo 3D in theaters, and it's going to be bath time for the Toy Story characters in a short called Party-saurus Rex. A couple of images have been released from the new short, and should be pretty fun to once again jump back into the world of Toy Story. Previously mentioned a soundtrack for Frankenweenie, that it was going to have a glow-in-the-dark cover on it, and a variety of artists would be featured. Well, now that track list has been released for the soundtrack. It includes artists such as Karen O, Neon Trees, Passion Pit, Plain White Tees, and a whole lot of others. Robert Smith from The Cure is going to have a song on there, Grace Potter. Anyway, you can head on over to the Frankenweenie webpage, to our Facebook, to many other locations online to see the full track listing. And wrapping up here, one final bit of movie news. Listener Gary wrote in and said, "What is going on with the new Haunted Mansion movie? Have not heard a thing about it for a while." And yes, Gary, that is absolutely true. Fortunately, Guillermo del Toro did chime in with an update this week in an interview with Collider. He said, quote, "I delivered my last Haunted Mansion script draft 5 weeks ago. I have a meeting with Disney heads in 3 weeks. I know they like the screenplay. I need to meet with them in 3 weeks. That's what I know. I know their reaction to the draft was good. We have a bunch of conceptual art, but you never know. To predict anything else is hard for me to know." He was then asked, what's his involvement beyond just writing the script? Is he going to direct it? And he said, quote, "I still would love to make that movie. I came on board originally as a writer and producer. The decision I think they may be waiting is for me to say I'm directing the movie, or am I directing it next, which is too early for me to know what I'm doing next in live action. I'm in the middle of Pacific Rim, and I don't know what I'm going to do next," end quote. So there it is. That's the latest on the Haunted Mansion movie. A lot of people were concerned that it was completely canned because Disney apparently removed it from a variety of websites, official websites, including press sites where they had referred to it. And so a lot of people were kind of freaking out that the Haunted Mansion movie was canceled. But as far as Del Toro is concerned, it's still very much in progress, but just very, very slow progress. So little by little, he's working on getting it done. Of course, Del Toro is a huge Haunted Mansion fan, and I doubt he'll let this project slip away, but he does have a tendency to do that because he takes on way too much at once. So we'll just have to wait and see. And that's it for your news from around the world this week. And this week's tip came in from a regular contributor here on the show, Maggie, who will be returning pretty soon with another fun segment. But in the meantime, I will read her tip, which is a good one. Maggie writes, "I have a tip for parents or anyone with little ones for any theme park. If you have small ones with you that might be tall enough for big kid attractions," my mom called them when I was little, look up the measurements and measure your little ones before you go to the park. It makes it easier on yourself, your little ones, and saves a huge amount of time. Plus, it's easier for you to plan which attractions you and your little ones can go on together, and which attractions you can ride by yourself or kid swap. Hope this tip is helpful for parents who might want to be ready for the big kid attractions. Maggie, definitely a good tip to plan in advance of a trip as far as the height measurements, rather than showing up there on the spot, getting your kid all excited about Big Thunder Mountain or Space Mountain, and then only to find that they won't be able to ride because they're not tall enough. If you know that before you even go to the parks, you can set expectations properly, and they'll know that maybe on a future trip they'll be able to do it, but not quite yet. Definitely a great tip there. Everyone else, email your tips into tips@insidethemagic.net. And before we move on to our next section here on the show, let me put in a quick word about Theme Park Connection. If you are a Disney collector, you've got to visit Theme Park Connection, whether it's in person at their warehouse and store out here in Florida at Winter Garden is the city, actually about 15-20 minutes north of the Magic Kingdom. They've got a massive warehouse filled with Disney collectibles, not only the kinds of things you see in stores, but also rare and unique props and costumes and set pieces and all kinds of cool stuff from movies and from within the theme parks as well, kind of current day attractions as well as dating back years and years. Not only will you find it all in person, but you can visit their website, themeparkconnection.com. Check out their online store. It's on eBay, very easy to buy stuff from. They're listing new items all the time, hundreds and hundreds of really amazing Disney collectibles. Of course, you can find store hours and directions, all of that information over at themeparkconnection.com. Joining us once again this week is Skipper Ben, back. Happy to have you back here on the show. So we're going to be talking about something pretty fun here, delving back into your cast member experiences from years and years ago out here at Walt Disney World.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've kind of touched this subject, and it's something I've been looking forward to getting back into for sure. It's there's a lot of Disney podcasts out there, not a lot of them with former cast members in there that kind of take you to the behind the scenes like we did several years ago, and it's fun to get back in there, especially since the show's grown so much over the years that some of the people might not have heard some of these old stories. So
exactly, that's kind of what I was thinking recently is, anybody who's tuned into Inside the Magic over the last couple of years has really known the show to be almost exclusively a news show, not so much the entertainment or sort of the behind-the-scenes Disney that we used to do so much years ago. So it's good to get back into that a bit, and so I'll kind of let you take it away here since you're the guy who actually worked for the mouse years ago.
That's true, and I thought this week we'd delve into a little bit of the good and the bad of working at the Disney theme parks. And for those who don't know, I know. Disney might not ever let me back in the parks if I bring up some of the real bad stuff, so I'll have to be careful. Right. But for those who don't know, I worked in 2 of the parks out there. I was a jungle skipper, thus the name Skipper Ben. And I also spent time, actually more time, over at Muppet Vision 3D at the Disney Hollywood Studios than I did over in the jungle. So there really are some major differences between, especially the Magic Kingdom and the Disney Studios. One, they were built so many years apart that they were, when the Hollywood Studios went up, they were able to advance things to the point that, behind the scenes, we actually called the Hollywood Studios the country club of the Disney theme parks.
And of course, it was MGM back then, right, when you were there?
It was MGM my first summer, and we were told to call it the Disney Hollywood Studios my second summer working out there in 2002. Oh, okay. But it's still very hard for me to, call it that. But that was during the transition period of trying to unofficially get away from the MGM name within the park. So, there's, like I said, several things that were good, several things that were bad. And I'm just gonna hop in. The easiest one that probably most people can relate to the most is over at the Magic Kingdom. The absolute worst thing about working in that park is the parking situation, just like it is for guests who go to the park. Whoever does, we know who designed the park, but whoever came up with the concept of making parking so much further away from the park than it needs to be,
right,
needs to have their head examined a little bit, because just like the parking for guests where you have to park across the lake, take the monorail, take the bus over, it's the same thing for cast members except on the back side of the park. For anybody who's taken the bus service, the resort bus service up to the Magic Kingdom, that road near the Contemporary where you take your left to go into the bus stalls,
right.
If you notice, it keeps going straight and it goes under a little bridge and goes back behind Space Mountain and stuff. If you keep going straight about the same distance as the TTC behind the park, that's where you get to park for cast members back there. And the same way you have to take buses, you have to take trams, you have to add much more extra time to get to your job on time when you work at the Magic Kingdom. Not something that you really want to do, especially if you're running late to your job that day.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then when you show up to park back there, and do you clock in right when you're there, or is it after you've taken the bus?
It's after you've taken the bus, and there were some. This is from my experience. I know there were some lawsuits that happened after I left that have some of these rules changed, where they've added on time to get to the costuming and get dressed and get clocked in. But when I worked there, no, you parked, you took the bus, you went, and that's when you clocked in. So, it took another 10 to 15 minutes before you could ever get to a time clock to get in, and it got Disney in quite a bit of trouble with some cast members. They lost, a good deal of money with some lawsuits, but unfortunately, being a lowly college program kid like I was,
Right.
we had to do what we had to do. So
You basically earned your money and then forked it right back over to the mouse for housing and food.
Oh yes, you did, and that's once you got over there to clock in, that's when you got to go over to costuming and get your costume, get changed, and get over to your attraction. So you have to keep all that in mind as well. That the time to get changed and dressed and put everything in your locker and get out there is factored into that, and that's a direct opposite of the Disney Hollywood Studios, which is one of the absolute best things over there is the parking and costuming situation. When you go over to the Disney Hollywood Studios, if you notice the parking lot that's over on the left-hand side that's near, you can sometimes see a parade floats and such inside this kind of dome tent. And it's just best way to describe it. As you're entering the park, if you look to your left, to your extreme left, go past that one little small security stand that's by the guest relations building,
right.
and keep walking straight. That's where the cast member parking is, and that's also where costuming is right there. So you have literally a 2-minute walk from when you park your car to get inside the building and get your costume. One of the other wonderful things about the Disney Hollywood Studios is you can check out multiple costumes and actually come dressed to the park, which we all love. To get dressed at home, drive your car over, take the bus over, walk right in and walk right to your attraction. Literally from car to Muppets, it could be about a 5 to 7 minute walk. Wonderful. You're dressed, you're
much
ready to
better
get
than
clocked in.
Yeah, much better than dealing with the bus. And of course, for any guests showing up to Disney's Hollywood Studios, that might be one of those things that you wonder. You're driving in with your car and you see this parking lot straight ahead. You're like, oh, great, I can park there. And nope, that's not going to work. That's for cast members.
That's also as you pull into the Disney Hollywood Studios and drive straight, and you see a parking lot that's full of cars right in front of you. Don't freak out and don't think, man, the park is packed. That's actually cast member parking. Those are the people already in the park getting things ready for you. So no, it doesn't, it's very deceptive. There's a lot of people that pull in there and just start freaking out, panicking that, lines are going to be extremely long all day. That's not always the case. It's, that's, you are parking with the cast members when you park over at the Hollywood Studios.
So a little bit of good, a little bit of bad when it comes to parking and costuming and all of that, depending on which park. Over at the Magic Kingdom, tell me something that was one of your favorite parts about working there.
Well, you can go the easy route. You can say the utilidors, but I'm not going to go the easy route and say the utilidors, although that was, probably the main reason why I had to get out there and go work for them was to get down into the tunnels and experience that. But one of the actually really cool things about the utilidors is, and nobody really knows this, but as you enter the park and you're in the middle of Town Square on Main Street, right below you is just this huge break room with arcade games, pinball games. Now, granted, this is when I was working there. Could have changed over some over the years, but that was kind of our congregation area. Whenever we got to get a little bit of a break, a little bit of extended time off, we would all go down there. And the real neat part about that is, the utilidors were made so you didn't see cast members from all different parts of the park walking when they're on show. And so, you never saw Tomorrowland characters on Main Street, stuff like that. But in this break room, what was real eye-catching was you saw everybody. And so it was, people dressed in the future, hanging out with us skippers, hanging out with some, Western people from Splash Mountain. Yeah. And so it was like the completely opposite dichotomy down right below, where the guests are all standing and being, kept away from the magic. So that was one of my favorite things, was just kind of, whenever I get a little bit extra time off from the, Jungle Cruise, head on over there and, on a break, play some pinball, play whatever. But it was a lot of fun, and just kind of the really neat part is being underground and knowing what's going on right above you and realizing that those people right above you have no idea what's down there. And they're all wondering.
Yeah, most guests don't realize they're actually walking on the second floor of the Magic Kingdom. Right.
So that was one of the really cool things. The other really kind of cool thing that none of the other parks did, especially while I was out there, specifically while I was out there, they didn't do, but the Magic Kingdom was also really good about throwing parties for the cast members after park closed. We had several different instances. I was out there during the summer that Lilo and Stitch premiered. We had a huge beach party out there behind Tomorrowland. kind of where the Tomorrowland stage used to be, that area right off of where the guests, come out. They brought in sand, they brought in characters that you've never seen in the parks for the movie, especially the large man who gets sunburned. That's one of the gags in the movie. He was walking all around, getting your picture taken with him and stuff like that. So they would do parties
fun.
like that. They would also, the one coolest one is they would, from time to time open up Space Mountain with the lights on for cast members to ride after park closed. And it's one of those things that everybody wants to do one of these days, and they're real good to, that when you're at the Magic Kingdom, you put up with a lot. The other parks are a little bit more laid back, a little bit more easygoing, but especially working during busy times at the Magic Kingdom, you're dealing with the longest lines. You're dealing with the people who can get irritated much quicker and much faster. And during these seasons, they did a good job of giving you extra little perks to kind of make up for some of those situations. So we had a lot of fun with doing special events like that. And I would get real jealous, especially when Lisa was still working out there and I'd be back home and she would talk about these special events and having fun, and I'm back in my dorm room doing work that I don't want to be doing. So that's really one of the probably the coolest deal, and just being around the history of the park, especially if you're a Disney fan, uber geek, and if you're listening to Inside the Magic, you're probably our kind of people.
Right.
The Magic Kingdom is the park you want to work at, because that is just where the history is at. That's where you're gonna ooh and ah more than any other park when you're walking through those tunnels, when you're walking through those backstage areas, and sneaking into spots that you probably shouldn't be sneaking into, but you just got to do it every once in a while.
Okay, so what about specifically with your namesake attraction, the Jungle Cruise? Give me the good, give me the bad of that.
The absolute worst is the outdoor break room that you have to put up with. It's a tent. It's a tent out there in the middle of the jungle with 2 fans. It is not an enclosed indoor break room. And
so after you've gone around the river like 8 times in a row and you're hot and you're sweaty, you still get to stand outside.
You get to stand outside. It was a blast. So that was by far the worst thing of that attraction. And this is a kind of a side note, worst part, but I have a huge fear of frogs.
Okay.
Huge fear. I hate them. I can deal with snakes. I can deal with anything else, but frogs can't stand. It's not the best attraction to work at if you have a fear of frogs. I'll just put it like that.
Yeah.
Especially at night when they start coming out, it starts cooling down. They start making their ways out on the pathways.
I'm sure. Yeah.
No. So,
I hear them, at night here around my house. They come out and start croaking at night. So I can imagine around, big waterways like that after dark, they got to be everywhere.
Yeah, it was weird because if a frog got anywhere near and we had to shoo it off, I was not about it. But, there were a couple instances we had snakes, show up in the queue, and you could tell us in the queue because you hear the, screaming and yelling. And I would have no problem going over there and getting rid of the snake. But yeah, if it's a tree frog that big, no, I wasn't going anywhere near it. So those were probably the 2 worst things. The best part was well, I've talked about them before, but we would do you have a lot of fun when the park closes sometimes, and when the managers are gone, especially during parades and fireworks and such. And so we would do a lot of really fun things at night when things that we weren't supposed to. I've talked before about the Dead Skipper cruises. I've talked before about just doing kind of inappropriate, not necessarily inappropriate in a bad way things, but
right.
We couldn't leave boats in the dock. I'll just put it that way. If a boat went out with guests on it, we couldn't just leave them all in the dock and waiting for more guests to come in. We would have to cycle through empty boats if it needed to happen. So when those guests that were already out there were finished, we would have a clear dock for them to exit. And so, that was always fun when a boat with group of guests would go out there, and then you would trail it with your empty boat. And you knew all the spots where you could sneak up on them and scare them and, turn your lights off. And as they come around the corner, flash them with a high beam, such stuff like that. And, it's that little extra experience. So that's why I always tell people, if you're going to do the Jungle Cruise, do it once during the day. That's great. But if you have time to run back over there at night when, 1, I think it's a better attraction at night, and 2, you usually have a lot more goofier cast members over there that are willing to do some much more entertaining things during the attraction. So that was that was an awesome part. And also during your training, you do go through the jungle, so you get to go behind the scenes. Uh, you see half hippos. You see, you know, stuff that stuff that looks really cool, you know, from a boat and from a guest perspective. When you go on the other side of that bush or that tree and you see
Right.
what's really there, it'll blow your mind away. Sometimes it's really really cool.
Now, is that part of like the nightly maintenance routine? I mean, does a skipper go wandering the jungle to make sure things are working, or is that a different crew?
That's a different crew. That's a different crew that comes in. Now that's getting back to some of our we would do skipper cruises at night. Usually it would be after park closing. What we would do is we fill up the boat with all the closing cast members, and usually some of the pirates from Pirates of the Caribbean would come over, and one or two skippers would run out through the jungle and you know, interact with the characters as you pass by. It was a cast members only type
Of
deal.
course, yeah.
A lot of fun and very fun, you know, very funny. So that was the only time that, you know, especially at night when somebody would go through the jungle, is when we needed to have one last laugh before we got, you know, wrapped up a really long day.
That sounds like a fun reason to become a cast member, right there, just to have some sort of after hours antics.
Yeah, my favorite was the guy who actually trained me on the attraction. We come around the corner from the hippo pool, and he's on the back of one of the dancing natives going around in the circle. He's got his arm around his neck, and he's just riding around, and you know, hilarious stuff. But you know, especially after long 8, 10, 12-hour days and that sun,
Oh
and
yeah,
that heat, you get a little goofy.
get a
and
little loopy.
oh yes, oh yes. So.
So what about over at Muppet Vision? What was the good and the bad of working there?
The good? A very easy attraction to work. That I got lucky. I got very lucky. That was being my first attraction to work at, because that's a very high seniority attraction. That's where people who have worked in the parks for 15, 20 years, that's where they go to finish their career, because it's so laid back, so easy to do. So
And air conditioned.
And it's air conditioned the whole time, unless you're out there, you know, moving strollers around, which is also a really fun thing to do. Is you know, somebody that parks a stroller where you tell them not to park it, when they go in to watch the movie, you make sure that stroller is somewhere else later on to give them a little tough time to find it. But yeah, it was a very easy attraction to work. So that was a wonderful part about it. When I was sitting here trying to think of something negative to say about Muppets itself, and I really couldn't do it, you know, as we were preparing for the show tonight. Probably the worst thing about working over there, and it's not just limited to Muppets, but it's those extra magic morning hours. Horrible. Especially on an attraction like Muppets, because honestly, if you're going to extra morning hours at that park, do you really need to do Muppets? No, you don't. You don't need to do Muppets. So, and that's the deal, is most people don't do Muppets. They're at, you know, Coaster, Mania, Tower, Star Tours, Movie Ride. They don't come back to Muppets until the regular park opening of 9 would normally come around. So you would sit there and maybe show the show to 10, 20 people, and then realize, I got up how much earlier today to get over here and show it to these 10 or 20 people. That was probably the worst part. You know, I absolutely loved every minute I had working over at Muppets. It also helps if you're a big Jim Henson fan, and you know,
I'm sure
that's really the best of both worlds for a Disney / Henson fan, because you're working at a Disney park under a Henson banner, and you know,
absolutely
that was gold for me.
Especially with it being Jim Henson's last Muppet project, right, before he passed away.
Correct. So you know, means a lot. It made me proud to wear the lab coat over there, because you know.
No, but it must have gotten a little bit old to see it over and over.
Unbelievably old. But that was a challenge we used to do. We used to you know, somebody would say, okay, I'm going into the theater, I'll be in there until I come out, type deal. Because normally on a rotation on that attraction, you would be in there a maximum of 2 straight showings, and then you would get bumped to the next position. But every once in a while, we would see how long we could last it out in there. And they would know, just skip that part of the rotation when your bump comes through. But whenever you finally have gone crazy and had enough, you would come out and they would run somebody in there right away to you know, to take your spot. I think I lasted 7 straight showings one time before I just went, this is enough, and went crazy. And that was, you know, quite good. But I mean, it's not a tough job because most of the time you're back there asleep while the show's on, and
Right.
you know that the one of the best things about that theater is when the walls explode at the end of the show, the walls actually
Hmm.
vibrate. So you know if you can just lean your head just right against that
It's an
wall,
alarm
fall
clock.
asleep. The wall will shake, and you've got about 45 seconds to get to the front of the theater and pick up the microphone and
There
go
you
again.
go.
So the key, though, is you have to put the 3D glasses on because if a
Mm.
manager so happened to walk through while you were sleeping back there, you know, no glasses on, he can see you, he or she
Right.
can see you asleep. The glasses on, it's so dark, you can play it off real easy, like, oh no, I was just, you know, I was watching, don't worry. So, you know, if
And,
you
and
could,
by that point, you can know exactly what part of the show you were in. So if they're,
oh,
tried to trivia, ask you any questions, be like, oh, yeah, it was the part where the chef comes out. No
oh yeah,
problem.
You know, I'm quite proud that I can do my Jungle Cruise spiel. I mean, if you ask me to do it right now, I could do it from beginning to end, no problem. But that's only 9 minutes long. I can
Right.
also do Muppets, and that's a 20-minute movie. That's not something to be proud of, but unfortunately, when you watch it so many times, it just subliminally goes into your head, and
Yeah.
you know, you know it from here on out to the point that I don't even see it anymore. Actually, this last trip was the first time I've seen it in probably 6 or 7 years, and it was just because my
Hmm.
daughter had seen the new Muppet movie, and she's really into
Mm.
Muppets now. So I was like, all right, I'll
Yeah.
take you in there, and we'll get into it. But honestly,
And
if I never,
somewhat recently, it got kind of the digital upgrade as well. So it's a good looking piece of film now.
they still haven't fixed the darn fireworks above the screen though, and that's
Mm.
something as an old cast member just drives me crazy. I want the fireworks screens to work again, but
Right.
you know,
What
hey,
about something as simple as the telling everybody to move all the way to the end of their row, and then of course you get people stopping in the middle in the busy summer months, and that had to have gotten aggravating after a while.
unbelievably aggravating. And we had hand signals, and we would know, the one of the jobs of the pre-show cast member who basically takes over for Sam Eagle and leads you into the theater. Uh,
Right.
they judge the size of the crowd, and they have these different hand signals that they give the person as they walk in to the main theater, and so that's how that person knows right away to tell you to move all the way to the end of the row or go 3/4 of the row
Mm.
or find any seat you want. It's because a hand signal is being given as the cast member enters the theater from the pre-show area, and they
Ah,
know
okay.
immediately. So yeah, a little secret for you right there. But there's nothing more frustrating than, especially during a packed show, and somebody stops halfway or in the middle, and you know you got to get bossy. And
Right.
I didn't go to Disney World to be, bossy. I went to Disney World to have fun and, make sure everybody enjoys their stuff. And you do get, unfortunately, multiple times a day, you would get somebody who wouldn't listen and wanted to ruin it for everybody else. And,
Yeah.
that was a real downer part to it for sure, was having to deal with those kind of people. And that's also, uh, you know, not really with Muppets, but going back to Jungle Cruise was, tour groups who, uh,
Mm.
didn't obey or didn't know didn't know the language in some parts, and there's not a whole
Right.
lot you can do with that. But the real difficult part on that is especially when the boat was going off and you were by yourself out there with 33 people who you gotta, one, entertain, and two, control and keep them safe while they're out there. And if they're not listening to you
Hmm.
whatsoever, it makes it very difficult for sure.
Now, I know you've said in the past, I'm sure it was a couple of years ago at this point, that one of your least favorite things to do while a cast member was deal with Phantasmic.
Oh, that thing. Yes.
Just, not to go into a 20-minute spiel about it, but what was it about Phantasmic that just drove you nuts?
Okay. Well, going there, my third summer, I was going back to work Muppets again, and I go there to get my schedule for the first day, and it has 2 days at Phantasmic. And I'm like, what's this? I'm not Phantasmic, I'm Muppets. That's
Hmm.
when I found out, this was 2002, that nobody wanted to work Phantasmic. So it became mandatory that everybody worked Phantasmic. That's how bad it got.
Mm.
So you would work a couple days of the week going over to Phantasmic, and essentially what it was dealing with that large crowd, getting them into the theater, getting all their strollers parked, getting them safely out of the theater, and then the worst part, cleaning the theater after all of them.
I can imagine.
A pigsty, filthy, 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 and you're sitting there going robot, especially on nights where there were multiple shows and you had to do it multiple times, so you had to do it fast
Hmm.
and efficiently. You would just leave, work that night just reeking and just covered in junk and gross. It was just gross. So that's why I'm adamant every time I go see that show to make sure all my trash is picked up and thrown away. And
Sure.
I encourage everybody that listens to the show that goes to see it, please
Well, that's
pick
what I
up
was
that
going to
trash
say is
because
the thing to take away from all of this is not that you as a former cast member are necessarily, griping and harking on the bad stuff and everything, but more, think about cast members because they're people too, and be courteous and clean up after yourself and do what you're told, and then, you can make everybody's life a little bit easier.
there's a rhyme and reason for everything that's done at Disney. Nothing is done without thought to it. So just keep that in mind. If we tell you to move all the way down to the end of the road, there's a reason because we need every seat
Right.
for that show. If it's a half full show, we will tell you, hey, don't go all the way to the end. But if we do tell you to do certain things, there's a reason you're being told to do that. So make sure you listen. One, it'll get you through the things faster, and it'll make everybody enjoy their experience that much more for sure.
I have to imagine, getting away from all this negative stuff, there were many, many good parts about, making those magical moments for guests throughout, whether it was Muppets or Jungle Cruise or anywhere.
The positives will outweigh the negatives by a mile.
Yeah.
And we definitely don't have time to get into all the positives tonight. We'll
Right.
we'll revisit some of these stories for sure over the weeks and months to come as we get back into these subjects more. But it does bring back to something that I was talking about to a friend of mine just a couple days ago. That even in this discussion we focused on the negative more than the positive a bit.
Hmm.
It goes back. They were talking about a positive experience they had in the park, and they're like, what do we do about that? And again, it's another thing that I encourage that if you ever get out there and you do experience a great cast member, go to guest relations and tell them about it, because they get hammered with more negative things
Yeah, I'm sure.
than positive. And when those positives do come into guest relations, one, they mean a world to the cast member, because there are some great cast members out there. You will encounter bad ones every once in a while, but I know my goal was I didn't care about a paycheck whatsoever. I cared about people laughing, people smiling, people having a good time. That's why you take those jobs out there.
Right.
But guest relations don't hear about that enough. And the great part is when you do go to guest relations and tell them about these experiences, they do go out of their way to relay that information back to the area managers and the cast members themselves. And that just encourages them to, keep doing as great a job as they are doing. So, keep that in mind next time you're out there on a trip, that if you encounter something that's just above and beyond and you're kind of blown away by, make sure somebody knows about that, because it means the world to the cast members out there.
And it's a good way for the guests to sort of increase the enjoyability of the parks in general. Because if you're praising cast members, it's going to make them want to do a better job, and others will see that praise coming in as well. And just everybody's going to get a better, attitude towards everything. Whereas if they're getting berated with negatives all the time, they're just going to feel terrible about themselves.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So certainly a lot of good, a lot of bad about being a cast member. I'm sure we could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, but let me ask you something completely different before we wrap this up. Of course, this week, Disney finally announced opening dates for New Fantasyland, at least a good portion of it. How's that going to coincide with your plans to come out here?
We're still trying to finalize the October trip. It's not set in stone at this point right now. So, but if it does come to fruition, it will be during that last week of October. So it doesn't look like we're going to be able to experience a New Fantasyland on this encounter unless we get lucky with some, soft openings or anything like that. Which,
Sure,
you never count on anything like that. But luckily, my sister, I mentioned, she's getting married out there next June. So we will be out there again, and
just in time, yeah.
We might have to wait 6 months, but we'll get it.
Yeah, so it's not earth-shattering enough for you to completely overhaul your plans and bump it back a month or two or anything like that.
If it were just up to me, of course I would do it. But unfortunately, work plays a big factor into when I can take some time off. So it won't match up this time, but it gives us that little carrot to listen to the show and follow all the news and watch all the videos, because we'll know 6 months later we'll be out there and getting to do everything. And I have seen the video of especially the stuff that's showing for the Bell attraction and the some of the audio animatronics that have come out in those behind the scenes, even those little small glimpses. I'm just blown away, and I'm cannot wait to get out there and see that. And the other one that I'm real interested in is, I have experienced Ariel's Undersea Adventure out in California.
Right.
They're being real, when that attraction opened out there, they did a great job of, releasing video of Ursula here and doing some of the video of the undersea, under the sea portion there. They've kept this thing quiet, unless I'm just totally looking at the wrong websites. They've kept pretty much everything under wraps on this one.
It's true.
Are they going to make any changes? I know I like the attraction out there, but there were definitely some areas that need some, in my opinion, reworking to better pull off some of the effects in it. Will those changes come to fruition, or are we going to get the exact same thing that's out there in California? Who knows? So I'm really anxious to follow you and make sure you shoot video of that the first chance we get, so we can watch it and see online.
Well,
I'm not one of those that can wait.
Definitely. Right. Well, I'll definitely be out there the first chance I get. Michelle and I have been talking about a trip, another trip to California, kind of hitting the Christmas season, and now we're totally up in the air because it's like, well, now it's Fantasyland, sort of end of November, early December, maybe soft openings, and it's kind of like, well, I guess I'm, stuck here, if you want to put it that way, until all of that opens up.
Yeah, my boss is talking about getting us up for some meetings out in California in October, shortly before our planned Florida trip, and I'm I'm nudging him, I'm poking him, and going, make sure we get out there, because I got to see Cars Land. So maybe I'll get lucky and get to check that out in October as well before we head out to Florida for that trip.
Excellent. Well, great to hear some cast member insight from you again. There's, of course, much, much more. I'm sure you have many more stories than we've even heard over the years you've been part of this. So looking forward to that. And we'll, have to get Lisa on also to weigh in on all these topics soon.
Yeah, she's got her own opinions on this. Those vary greatly from mine. I'll put it that way. So we'll have to tap into her sometime and get her to mention, especially working over at the Magic Kingdom, and see how that varies from my experience of working over there.
Excellent. Always good to talk to you, Skipper Ben.
Thank you, Ricky.
Always great to talk to Skipper Ben. Exciting to hear about his cast member stories. Looking forward to more of that in the future. Right now, I do want to put in a quick word about Lanyard Lab. If you've got a business to promote, or maybe you're going to a convention, like I mentioned earlier, Star Wars Celebration, you got name tags to wear, or just items to hand out. Custom lanyards, great way to do it, to promote what you have, or just identify yourself, put your own name, logo, colors, whatever you want, hanging around your neck. Visit our website over at lanyardlab.com to get it all done. Just click on Get a Quote anywhere on the site, fill out the short form, submit that to us. You can submit your graphics, text, whatever it is that you want to put on there. We'll email you back with a price quote for your design, along with a proof showing you what your design will look like as produced on a lanyard. And if you're happy with all that, you can just make the purchase online. It is as simple as that. Of course, you can make any changes that you want before actually buying it, because there's no obligation whatsoever with any of it. So check it out over at lanyardlab.com. That's LANYARDLAB.com.
Hey, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky. Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
Ricky, this is amazing.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Inside the Magic listener feedback.
Lots and lots of listener feedback has been coming in. A really impressive number of emails this past week, and actually over the last few weeks. I probably have an hour's worth of emails here if I wanted to go through all of them. Just scrolling through them right now. I've got so many. So let's just jump right into it. We'll get as many as I possibly can on this week's show and continue to carry them forward from there. First up is an email from Daniel in Salt Lake City, who writes a variety of questions all surrounding essentially, well, I'll read the beginning of it. He writes, my wife and I love being able to click through the Amazon links on InsideTheMagic.net to support the show. We've done so over the past couple of years, but some questions have arisen about how it all works. Essentially, he from there is asking, when do you have to click on it? When do you add things to the cart? If you come back later, does it still count, etc., etc.? Basically, if you want to support Inside the Magic and you're making Amazon purchases already, just go to InsideTheMagic.net before you add anything to your shopping cart. Look for any of the Amazon graphics on there. Click through one of those Amazon graphics and then go ahead and do your shopping. Add things to your cart during that session. Anything you do add to your cart at that point will sort of get credited to us, even if you don't purchase it right away. I think it's got a 30-day time span in there for it to sit in your cart and still give us credit. So you can just do all your shopping, even if you need to come back later, then make the purchase. We will still get credit for that. We get a small percentage back for whatever you purchase from there, and it definitely is a good thing for the show. So Daniel, thanks for asking the question, and for anybody else out there who's been shopping through Amazon through our link. Next up, an email from Donald, who writes, rumors have been circulating that a new parade will debut at the Magic Kingdom in 2013 called Disney's Festival of Fantasy Parade. Any confirmation? No, Donald, no confirmation yet, but I have heard similar rumors that new entertainment, and not only parade, but perhaps some nighttime entertainment also has been in the works. We'll just have to wait and see. Yes, it does seem like something will likely be coming, whether it's that specific parade or something else in that specific time frame. That we don't have any more news about quite yet. Next email from Evan writes, I just saw show 380, and you mentioned the Frankenweenie exhibit coming to Disneyland. I wonder if you knew a time frame we could expect that. Well, obviously I answered that earlier in the show, but Evan continues, I also heard that Radiator Springs Racers has trouble running for more than an hour at a time. Do you think Disney will close down the ride for a couple days or weeks to fix the problems, or just keep having the ride break down? Evan, that's definitely a hot topic right now, because you're absolutely right. Radiator Springs Racers, as amazing of a ride as it is out in California Adventure, is having a lot of technical difficulties. Seems to be quote-unquote breaking down on almost a daily basis at this point, sometimes for just a couple of minutes, sometimes for an hour or two, and Disney has been bringing it down for an extra couple of hours here and there at the beginning of the day, repairing some of the issues. It's a very complex attraction. The ride system, of course, complex unto itself, but then it also adds in some really advanced audio animatronics figures and a lot of high-tech things, and things are just bound to break, and no, I don't expect Disney to be closing it for days or weeks anytime soon, because it is the big hit new attraction for the Disneyland Resort. Bob Iger in the Q3 fiscal report said it has received a 100% rating from guests who have been on it, saying they will return to ride it again. So that's pretty darn impressive. So no, Disney's not going to, they're going to want that up as much as possible. I'm sure they're doing nightly maintenance, nightly repairs as much as they possibly can, and they're working on whatever problems that are surfacing, and really just with so many complicated parts to it, and it's new, it's just bound to have some issues here and there, but I'm sure it will improve in the days and weeks and months to come. And, even if you're in line and it breaks down, just stick with it and go for it, because it is one heck of a ride. Next up, an email from Thomas, who writes, me and my fiance live in the UK, huge fans of the show. We try to have a 2-week vacation in Orlando every year around October, November time, so we can catch the end of Halloween Horror and the beginning of all the Christmas festivities. Because of the escalating prices, we cannot always afford to stay in a Disney property, so we usually stay on International Drive, which works out great because we're closer to Universal, and most hotels offer transport to and from all the parks, which means we can enjoy some of the great cocktails at the Disney restaurants without having to worry about a designated driver. Due to these transport times, most of our main evening meals take place on International Drive. Over the years, we've tried many great places, such as Texas de Brazil, Maggiano's, Ming Court, etc. So my question is, are there any great iDrive or in the area restaurants you would suggest going to after a good day's theme parking? P.S. Any news if Test Track will open before mid-November, as these are our last days in Orlando? P.S. Your recent podcasts have convinced me to postpone our Orlando vacation next year and try to go to Disneyland, then Comic-Con next summer in 2013. That way, when we return to Orlando in 2014, we can have some great new experiences, such as the new Harry Potter section of Universal and the completed Fantasyland. Fingers crossed. Thomas, lots of good questions there. Some unique questions, actually. I don't think I've ever been asked about the restaurants on iDrive. If you've never been, this is kind of a not really a local specific thing, but then again, you don't have them over in the UK. If you've never been to Tony Roma's, that is a regular stop for me. I've been eating at Tony Roma's my entire life, literally since growing up in Miami and then coming up here. It is an excellent restaurant for ribs. It's right there on iDrive. Definitely a good one to go to. The recently opened Fogo de Chão, which I can never pronounce correctly, is also excellent. Though you said you went to Texas de Brazil, similar concept there. So another option for you to consider. Let's see, in the chat room, a couple of people are suggesting some restaurants as well. Duncan is suggesting Tutu Tango, which is another good option. It's Epcot Center in the chat room suggests Buca di Beppo, which is an Italian restaurant. I've eaten there once, and I wasn't thrilled by it, but I'm an extremely picky Italian food eater, so, anyway, there's just a few items. There are definitely a lot of restaurants to avoid on International Drive, a lot of chains and this kind of thing. And actually, Dave & Buster's has a surprisingly good food for being a sort of, a bar/video arcade. We've been frequenting Dave & Buster's since that opened as well. It's not somewhere I would go specifically to eat the food, but it is actually pretty good food. And then you can have some fun in their arcade as well. So some iDrive options there. Answering your other questions, Test Track is unclear at this point. They've said fall 2012 is when Test Track is going to reopen. That could mean October, could mean November, could mean December even. Fall technically is all the way till December 22nd, I believe. So it's hard to know if Test Track will be opening in November. I know there have been rumors that December 1st is when that would happen, but with New Fantasyland opening on December 6th, who knows? So we'll see. Next up, an email from Trevor, who writes, a couple episodes ago, you gave me and my family advice on where to eat, how to avoid the lines when visiting Disneyland, and using your advice, we managed to not wait in a line longer than 80 minutes, including Radiator Springs Racers. We rode single rider on the Matterhorn bobsleds approximately 5 times, not waiting over 15 minutes. You helped to make our vacation a little more magical. Trevor, excellent. That's exactly what I like to hear. I'm glad my advice actually works out. Always nice to get confirmation that I sort of maybe possibly know what I'm talking about. So good. I'm glad you had a good time at Disneyland and avoided many of those lines. And only 80 minutes for Radiator Springs Racers is not bad at all, considering the many hours that many have waited as well. Next up, an email from Austin, who writes, this is in response to some previous emails asking about some romantic ideas for Walt Disney World. Austin writes, I've got a great idea for a romantic trip to Walt Disney World. The cottage suites at Boardwalk are awesome. They're 2 stories with a master bedroom and bath. You get your own private entrance with your own yard. I never hear people talk about these. And he sent me a link to a video tour. It's just on YouTube. I'm sure anybody can search for it. Austin, interesting one. Honestly, I've never even heard of those before. Something I may have to check out at some point. I can't imagine they're particularly cheap, but definitely sounds like a good romantic option. So thanks for that email. Next up, an email from Key from Canada, who writes, I'm taking my girlfriend to Disneyland for the first time for 7 days in August, and I have 2 quick questions for you. 1, where can we pick up lanyards that everyone wears around the parks and keeps their tickets in? We both agree that lanyards are something we would like to invest in, and just keeping our tickets in our pockets does not seem safe. And number 2, since it's her first time to Disneyland or any Disney theme park, what 2 rides are an absolute must for her first 2 Disney rides? I was thinking Indiana Jones and the Mad Tea Party. What do you think? Good questions there. As far as lanyards, you can pick those up just about anywhere in the park. They are for sale all over the stores there, with the little pouches, the badge holders, the ticket holders, whatever you want to call them. Disney sells those pretty much at any pin location, which is throughout the park, so you don't have to worry about picking those up. You can, I don't know how much they are exactly, but they're not terribly expensive. You won't have a problem finding those. As far as 2 rides for somebody who has never been to a Disney park before, I can't say Indiana Jones and Mad Tea Party would be the first that I would think of. Indiana Jones, great ride, but doesn't have Disney written all over it. It's Indiana Jones, it's George Lucas, it's all of that. It's not, it's Steven Spielberg. It's not quite Disney, though it is an excellent Disney attraction. The Mad Tea Party, I just don't go on, period. It's not my kind of thing. For me, I would say kind of a mix of classic dark ride and then also thrill ride. I would go for either Pirates or Haunted Mansion for one of them, and then the other, Thunder Mountain or Space Mountain. Those are kind of the definitive Disney experiences as far as I'm concerned. If it's me going to Disneyland, it would be Haunted Mansion and Space Mountain for my own personal preferences, but others may, like Pirates and or Big Thunder Mountain better as well. But those are kind of what I think of as traditional, classic, the best of the best, really get a sense of what Disney is all about. So that would be my recommendation. Next email is from, Jad. And Jad writes, I appreciate all your hard work and the information about Disney and other stuff that I've received. Now, here's a question. First time I had ever heard about the D23 Expo was back in 2009 when I was at Disneyland riding the tram from the Mickey and Friends parking lot passing along Magic Way when I saw a sign on a light pole that said D23 Expo 2009. I wanted to go last year, however, I wasn't able to make it. Now that tickets are on sale for the 2013 Expo, I was wondering when I should buy the tickets, and should I buy them for 1 day or 3 days? Well, tickets possibly maybe could sell out at some point for one of the days, but it's unlikely to happen anytime soon. I believe 2 years ago for the 2011 Expo, tickets were available all the way up until just maybe a week or two before the Expo, and I think they only eventually sold out for one of the days, and I think it was either the day for the studios. Yeah, I think it was the day for the Walt Disney Studios presentation, because in 2009 is when they brought out Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow as a big surprise, and everybody was hoping for some massive surprise like that. Plus, there was the promise of them bringing out all the Avengers stars and etc. So I believe that day finally did sell out. But you won't really have to worry about it too much. You can buy them now. You get a discount if you buy them now by the end of this year, so that helps. But you can really buy them pretty much all the way up until the event itself. As far as 1 day versus 3 days, it depends on what you want to see. They are going to, scatter the different presentations over the course of all of the days of it. There'll be Parks presentation, a Studios presentation, and many others as well. You might want to wait until they start to release the actual schedules before you decide on which days you want to buy it for. So hope that helps a little bit. Next email is from Dave, who writes, today, Disney said they would be reducing the duration of extra magic hours starting in 2013. This made me curious about park hours for my family's upcoming trip to Disney World. Upon checking out the hours for our time at the park September 2012, I found that they're significantly shorter than they were for the same time last year when we visited. For example, Hollywood Studios is closing at 8 p.m. this year, while they closed at 10 or 11 p.m. last year. These are normal operating hours, not extra magic hours. What's happening? Dave, good question. It's always hard to predict the actual operating hours. If we throw out the idea of private parties that close down the parks early and that kind of thing, which happens, you can't really predict when that's going to happen and for how long. If you throw that out right there and just kind of look at the standard hours, it just depends on what Disney's predicting for the crowd levels, what their, the time of the year. And I know you're talking about comparing the same time of year one to the other. Yeah, it does surprise me a little bit to hear that it's a couple hours, 2 to 3 hours earlier, 1 year to the next. But perhaps they learned something from last year and decided those extra few hours were not really necessary because the crowds were so light that you could really get everything in during the day, not have to stay into those later hours. It seems like the Magic Kingdom keeps getting open later and later. I've seen, extra magic hours going all the way till 3, 4 in the morning. Some of the other parks, maybe not so much. So to answer your what's happening question, I can't say that really anything specific is happening other than just kind of a reevaluation of when parks need to be open and for how long they need to be open. If you look over at Universal's parks, some of those, when it's the off season, they close extremely early. Well, at least before Harry Potter they did. Even with Harry Potter, some of them closing at, 5, 6, 7 o'clock. Which is it's surprising for those who are used to seeing the 11, 12, 1 in the morning hours for the summer, but when you go in the off season, you really should be able to cram more into a park in a day and not have to stay so late. So it's not really an answer, but it's something. All right, let's do just a couple of more emails, and we'll continue to hold the rest for a future week. Next up is Blake, who writes, I was listening to show 377 and you mentioned Imagineering headquarters is in Glendale, California. Like many other kids, I want to be an Imagineer, and I always thought Imagineers just had a separate building in the back of the park or on property. So my question is, where do Imagineers go to work every day? Is it in the park or at some headquarters? Also, while I visited Walt Disney World last July, I went on Dinosaur and the overall ride was good, but to me it seemed like the ride was way too loud. I remember plugging my ears. It was so loud. Just wanted to know your thoughts on this. Blake, good couple of questions there. Yes, Glendale, California is the headquarters for Walt Disney Imagineering. That's where the majority of Imagineers who are doing the creative work are going to go to work every day. That's where they're going to have their offices and their desks and their, pens and pencils and paper and all that stuff, and be able to just sit down, go in meetings, and do their design work. Now, when it comes to Imagineers in the field, when they're actually working on the installation of an attraction, yes, there are also separate offices, often temporary ones, perhaps trailers on a construction site or such at Disneyland or out here at Walt Disney World, and there are some other areas that are permanent Imagineering offices out here at Walt Disney World as well, so they're really spread out. The majority of Imagineers do go to the Glendale headquarters, the building there on Flower Street, but yes, they do get spread out depending on the projects that are going on. As far as Dinosaur, you're right, it is a very, very loud attraction. I don't know if it's louder recently than it has been in the past, but it is a rather loud ride. It's dinosaurs, and I guess they want to scream at you and growl at you, and that's just the way it is. So if you find it too loud, sure, plugging your ears will certainly do the trick. Next up, an email from Megan, and I think we'll wrap it up after this email. Megan writes, we just got back from Disney World. I've been to Disney World 26 times as of this time we went. I really didn't like the fact that you can walk around all the parks except Magic Kingdom with alcohol. I really didn't think this was a good idea on Disney's part. It's really sad when you're standing in line, for example, at the Little Mermaid in Hollywood Studios, and the people behind you smell completely like alcohol. Just wanted to know what your opinion on this was. I did agree when you could walk around the countries in Epcot and you can get alcohol at the restaurants, but I don't believe they should sell alcohol all over the parks and let people wander all over drinking it. It's not very family friendly. Megan, I agree to some extent. Certainly the Magic Kingdom doesn't allow it, and so you think, well, if Magic Kingdom doesn't allow it, why should, like you said, an area, a Little Mermaid attraction at Hollywood Studios, which right around the corner is sort of the, really the animation area, the kids area of the park, and Toy Story Mania, all of that. Alcohol really has no part in that. But at the same time, it really comes down to, guests and what they decide to purchase. Disney's making it available. Disney is not saying, go get drunk in our parks. They're saying, yes, you can have a drink here and there. And of course, they want you to drink responsibly and be an adult about it. Unfortunately, some people simply can't deal with that, and they just want to go and what they would call have a good time, and of course ruin it for other people. And whether Disney should step in and say, no, we're just simply not going to offer it anymore, well, that could put a damper on some other people's vacations who are simply looking for a drink here and there. So it's sort of that fine line that they walk. You're right, walking around the World Showcase at Epcot, great place to drink around the world, as many people like to do, but then that does carry over into some of the other park areas as well. So, yes, some people have an aversion to it all. Some people really enjoy it, and then there's people right in the middle. And I don't think Disney will ever stop selling it. It's, of course, a huge moneymaker for them. Alcohol sales adds more money for building attractions. So you can look at it that way. Every time you smell somebody with alcohol in their breath, just think they just paid $10 for that drink, and that's $10 to the next e-ticket attraction. And then just kind of shrug it off and deal with it. So anyway, that is it for your listener feedback this week.
There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
And that'll do it for show 384 of Inside the Magic. A fun conversation with Skipper Ben, as always. Looking forward to talking to him more and more about those great cast member topics in the future. Of course, lots of news this week. I think it ended up being like 40 minutes worth of news from, of course, theme parks and new Fantasyland opening dates. Definitely the most exciting bit right there. Really have something to count down to now. It's not this sort of lofty, eventually New Fantasyland will open. Now it's actually pretty clear as to when exactly it will open, or at least the majority majority of it will open. Really, really looking forward to seeing that in the coming months. So, of course, there's a lot to look forward to between now and then. Little Mermaid area of Art of Animation is definitely something I'm really looking forward to seeing next month as well, and plenty more. Test Track somewhere in there, and all kinds of other good stuff. And of course, the Halloween season is always my favorite time of year. So, lots to look forward to in the world of theme parks as always. I do want to thank Magical Travel for sponsoring this week's episode of Inside the Magic. You can find out more about their services by visiting magicaltravel.com. Also, check out themeparkconnection.com if you are a Disney collector, or if you're just wanting to check out some really awesome items from Disney past. You can visit their store out here in Florida, as well as check out their online store. Again, the website, themeparkconnection.com. And visit us over at lanyardlab.com to see all the different styles and custom lanyard options that we have available. You can request a price quote today to receive a free digital preview of your lanyard design. And between episodes of this show, visit InsideTheMagic.net. It is your source for Disney and theme park news. In addition to each week's show notes, you'll find, you'll be able to follow us on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, and keep up with all the latest Disney and theme park fun all the time. Next week, we'll be talking Destination D, which is ongoing right now. Exciting event so far. It'd be fun to see what's going to be happening for the rest of today, so we'll be talking about that soon. And plenty more from the world of D23 and the Expo, and of course everything else in the world of theme parks as well. So thanks very much to all of you for listening and for watching each and every week, and have a magical week.
Just
Bye.
a dream away. So there's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.